project management. So basically, my thoughts on this was kind of like, trying to practice good science from start to finish. So the most important thing, in my opinion, with this is you have to tailor it to yourself, because this is your project management. So I'm going to give you some thoughts, some ideas, categorize things how I like to do them, but that may not work for you. So that's the most important thing from this, is like take from it what's useful to you, and what isn't, just say, oh, well, that's nice, and that's fine. But, because there's so many different resources out there, when I was like looking up this, so feel free to search for something that works better for you. So kind of questions that you should kind of ask yourself before you're starting is, what is the start and finish of your research? What are you considering, when it's actually starting, when is it finishing? If there's any distinct stages, like, an order of operation, like, X has to finish before I can go to Y. So being aware of those kind of things are really interesting and important to have in mind. So like if you had to pilot your research before you could do the actual thing, or if, there's other stages that you have to distinctively complete before you can go on to the next. Like if you're doing, animal research, you have to do the ICOOK. If you're doing, human, you gotta do IRB. So those kind of things would be part of it as well. And objectives. So, you need to set yourself at least some sort of objectives. And later on, we're going to go over the slight difference between objectives and goals. And some of this is terminology and nitpicking, but it's important when you're actually describing what you intend to do that you eventually have it in objective form. And making sure that these objectives are addressed within the timeline you create for yourself. Now, how strict you want to be on that, completely up to you. If you need to be an enforcer with yourself, I have to put deadlines on myself, because otherwise I tend to be a slacker sometimes, and I'll wait till the last minute and stress myself out. So I try to be good to myself and create these individual deadlines. So know how you work best, and be honest with yourself. Don't just give yourself carte blanche on everything either. You gotta be your best self. And again, being aware, is the timetable realistic? And this is something that, hopefully your mentor, mentee, everyone else in that network is going to be helping you with as well. Because you may not have the background knowledge right now to know whether that's a reasonable timeline. And again, you do want to challenge yourself a little bit, but, be aware that there's other things going on in your life too. And, there's priorities, but just, make it realistic, but still don't make it easy. You want to, again, be challenging so that you value what you're doing. Okay, so again, any external constraints, other deadlines, if there's anything else, like, obviously if you're set to graduate, you probably want to wrap things up before you graduate, unless you, accommodated that with talking about doing some post work as well, which you can as a technician sometimes, or you can just do it for volunteering if you really are into it that much, depending, just being aware of things that are going to be happening. And again, regular updates and progress. This is, you can self-report on that too, but also it's sometimes nice to have outside accountability. So whether it be your distinct mentor, a graduate student that's working with you, the PI, all of the above, whatever kind of network you have, some sort of accountability is usually good. Again, depending on yourself, whether, you tend to be tricky with yourself or, you tend to be really, on the ball. And, again, how do you demonstrate this progress? So what kind of metrics would be showing that you've made progress? So these are things to kind of keep in mind when you're developing your project management plan. So one of the most important things is, again, terminology. I like to go into this because words actually do matter. And, sometimes it doesn't when you're talking, but as scientists, word choice matters a lot. So I mentioned already goals versus objectives. So this is just kind of an overview of kind of giving you an idea. So, a goal is a purpose toward which an investigation is directed, really kind of general. So you're going to start off with goals, but then you're going to say, go into objectives later on when you get a little more focused. So something that one's efforts and actions are intended to attain or accomplish, so purpose, target. So this may seem like nitpicking, but it really kind of helps you think about things to focus it a little more. Not just, well, I want to do this big thing in the ether. I mean, that's great. That's where you start. But as you progress, you need to focus it more into these objectives. So, your goals are these long-term nebulous, I want to become the king of the universe, whatever. That's way, way off in the future, most likely. I don't know what you're up to, but, so you have these big, big goals, long-term. But your objectives are short-term, and they can be measured easier. So usually, a long-term kind of goal often can't be distinctively measured. Sometimes it can. If you want to become a surgeon, you can measure that. Yes, you're there. But if it's just like this, I want to be the best surgeon ever, there's not really a metric for that. So it's more how it's this nebulous feeling, and there's always room for improvement often. At least in my opinion, I always want to keep getting better. And I think that's usually a nice positive way to view your life, that you're a constant work in progress. So that's your goal. But you can reach objectives, and you can keep lily padding off those objectives. So again, just general ideas, and there's a little example at the bottom here. So your goal is an after-school program that will help children read better. Okay, so you can't really measure that, but that's a thing. It's definitely a great goal. But an objective is this big, long thing here that's being more specific, that's saying, it's going to assist 50 children improving their reading scores by grade level as demonstrated by this standard test. So it's got, it's defined, it's distinct. You can measure it, you can check it off your list. Goals may or may not be checkable, depending what they are. So another kind of terminology to keep in mind is, hypothesis. There generally 4 major types, and if you don't know the null hypothesis, I just thought this was a cute kind of little metric, but so if you're not familiar with what the null hypothesis is, it's kind of a nice way of looking at it. So it's the assumption you're beginning with, so it's the opposite of what you're testing. I once had a non-science person told me that science was the pursuit of lies because of the null hypothesis, which I thought was really interesting. At the time, it really upset me. But now I think about it, and it kind of, I could see where he was coming from. But it's something, to keep in mind that when you're formulating, looking at things, that, these are, again, the terminologies, your null and your alternate. Your alternative is actually what your goal is. But, because science is proved by disproving, you have that null hypothesis in there as well. Because a lot of the major finds in science are found out by saying that something doesn't cause something else, because that's a lot easier to prove. Okay. So the major types are a literary null, which means there's no difference. So in terms of theoretical constructs, though. So that's an important note there. So you just say there is no difference between school achievement for our high and low self-regulated students. There's your literary null. Operational null is in same kind of thing, but in terms that are required to test the hypothesis. So there's no difference between the mean grade potential and, so that's your difference. You've got a measurable quantity there. Your literary alternative, so this states that the hypothesis you will accept the null hypothesis is rejected. So in terms of theoretical constructs. So I know this is a lot of jargon, but I think it kind of helps you put things into frame. So an example of that would be high self-regulated students will achieve more in their classes than low self-regulated students. So again, you're relating the hypotheses in this case. And then there's the operational alternative, which is similar to the literary alternative, except that the operations are specified. So this is, comparing this to this again, but using metrics. So this is just kind of terminology to keep in mind. So generally, the operational null is the most commonly used form. And something, to think about when you're formulating your hypothesis, it's, doing a literature review and seeing how people in the field, write it as well. Because you probably, when you learned in classes, it was very straightforward and so vanilla that you would never see that exact one in a article. You never see, my hypothesis is blank will blank. Because that's just not the way it's done in literature or in science generally. I mean, sometimes you do spell it out. Like if you're doing a poster or something, it's really nice because it gives people a really quick snapshot. But generally speaking, you don't spell it out exactly. All right. So this is kind of how I broke down project management. And again, use what works for you, but I like to compartmentalize things because, it gives me something that I can complete in little steps instead of just, this big daunting, thing. But these may or may not work for you. So you kind of start off with a conceptual phase, and then you go into your design or planning, and then into an empirical, an analytic, and then ending in kind of a dissemination or, moving on steps. All right, so now I'm going to pass things off to you guys. So each one of you take one little Padlet, and you're going to organize them in the way that you see fit. There's also several blanks in here. So you guys are somewhat together. So the blanks, feel free to write something if you think I didn't include something that you think is important. But make sure you use all of the ones that I included, and some of them may fit in more than one category. Or you don't have to categorize them if you don't want to. But take 5 minutes on your own and kind of think of how you would arrange these. And then after you're done with that, you're going to pair up and kind of discuss how you organized it. And then we'll come in together as a class. And if you want to remind of my little divisions, you can use those, but it's purely up to you. go ahead and buddy up with somebody and discuss the finer points of your arrangement? If not, it's fine, you've got time. In pairs though, because we got 8 people's. Those are break times.
Lately, I dropped one. See what I dropped. I did establish a mentoring support network as you need that, and you identify a problem, reason for it. You review the scientific literature around it, whether they find terminology you're using, communicating formalized hypothesis about the project, conceptualize the project. Oh, sorry, more around that. You're going to outline the project, review your plans for mentor, you know, what your plan is, you find appropriate funding sources that help you. You're off. You finalize the research plan and you turn your goals start collecting. Start collecting data. You assess the methods.
I'm gonna get all the samples done.
I'm gonna do it in triplicate.
Yeah.
Forget that. I'm gonna do it. It was like 10. Connecting goals to the bigger picture. While you share at the same time sharing mentors is probably where that's going to start happening. Write it formally, do a research paper, identify appropriate policies. Publish as a paper, utilize Yeah, networking, establishment, writing results, research input and provide objectives, publishing scientific literature, networking, identifying problems. Do you have to learn all of these? She's like, actually, I'm done for the day. I can lots of previous work. I was like, really? I was like, I can full work to do.
She even like organized by size.
Well, like,
She's usually the editor for a lot of
finding
things.
appropriate publishers who don't know like maybe
All the
in
scientific
cases like that more interesting in one journal than another. Like that, like you know, we don't you don't necessarily know. It's like, oh, this came out with this. It's probably not going to be Nature. Maybe it'll be Science. Maybe it'll be neither of those. Like,
Yeah. It's just like the worst.
Yeah, like I've read some things about the food and they come back like, what?
Yeah. It's like when you like write an essay for a class and you know you need to proofread it for errors.
you know.
Red mark everywhere. So have you guys heard Roman's section? I had to rewrite my eyes. Sorry. No, sorry.
You should call him Carlton.
Carlton.
Oh, you still think that?
And I want to make sure you get a point in there. Every time I see it.
I feel like findings are utilized when you have a published note. Like you can't, like when you patent a vaccine. I mean, you can't patent a vaccine until the results are published about it, or you can't patent like this new methodology until people have a paper saying. So you can utilize it once it's like been established.
All right, start to wrap it up, guys. We need to move to groups soon.
Yeah.
y'all feel good now? Got some ideas percolated? Okay. Does anyone want to volunteer to tape theirs onto the board? So send one person from each group and put it up. If it's already in there, let it be. If you argue about where it goes in the placing, put a little arrow to it. The tape's up here. So come, I put it into these sections, you know, but if you think it goes into both, you can put it in between. And there are extra ones too, if you have yours in one here and one way over there, or something like that.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, really?
Yeah, you can have an assistant to help you tape.
Well, I could tape like that if you want or something.
Wait, you get the tape ready?
Them? You all just get a bunch of pieces ready?
Yes.
We need a lot of tape.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit should be sufficient. You can use multiple on one too, like a bunch of them or something.
I'm just gonna make like a line. I don't even know if there's
But
gonna
if
be
there is somebody who's already got
space.
theirs up and you agree with it, you don't have to redo.
Oh, sorry. Take your time. I didn't see you standing behind me.
Oh,
It's okay.
conceptual first, design second,
See?
vertical.
Come on, guys.
But,
That's why you need someone back here.
I guess we'll just, I think we should.
Baby, you should come up here and help.
this is
Wait, what?
Yeah, unless you want to help assist, it's up to you.
Oh, so that's design. So
Okay, so-
formulate, hypothesis, outline, project. So like,
Bigger picture.
So you can see all of it?
I want to see it all more.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to rewrite too, that's totally fine. Just, as you can tell, my handwriting is horrible, so I avoid it at all costs. But so while you're taping, if you see somebody else's that is not the same as yours, you know, put like a little mark by it and just, you know, a question mark, because we're going to discuss those. So make sure you know which ones are yours.
we're just putting certain sections and we're putting everything.
no, this is basically like, I mean, this is the design. This is like the entire design.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Well, and then finalize the research plan. And then empirical, would empirical include finding?
Empirical would be like performing the experiment, I think.
A
So
lot of design.
yeah, design would be this, right? Because we like need that.
Yeah, that's true.
And then
And then
that's it.
running tests would be empirical.
Yeah.
It's all up to you. That's why it's choose your own
Oh.
adventure.
Well, here's some tape.
And then just go on to the next one.
Mark it in. If I die, I'm like,
Oh,
okay,
I guess
track,
no
where
one
was
else
I
is
in? Okay, I'm not going in on effects.
Wonder if people like drop the book at that. It's like, oh, yeah, the book's over.
I hope nobody, because that's sad.
Wasted book.
Just 2 people, I think, at this point.
Why?
It reminds me of like elementary school. You know, like in classes when they're like, use these marshmallows and sticks to build a DNA, like in biology.
Yeah, I mean, if you do see one that's already up there and you agree with the order of it, you can just put a check mark next to it. You don't have to rewrite
Oh,
things
wait.
that are already up there.
Not those.
However, if you
Oh, that's
have these in
analytic.
some sort of
Yep.
order and you think that it needs to happen in a different order, that's fine.
Just doing the project as a head.
Forget this whole management thing.
Because don't you want to do that after you analyze the data, maybe?
Exactly.
Yes.
We could do this one.
Okay, this will be.
Share results. Oh wait, that's after analyze. Okay, so. Assistant.
Okay.
Okay.
doing great. How's the view?
That's like the
Yeah?
stuff, like doing
I can see everything.
assessing your methods
Okay.
as needed. Running tests, collecting data. I think it's just stuff like that. No, that could be that also. Because it's like assessing methods, if you encounter problems, doing your experiment. Like that really that.
Sure.
Papers down.
Well, this morning.
Okay. Pieces of paper.
I don't want them. You can put them in the paper recycling on your way out.
I'll see my way out then.
No, we're not done yet, and I'm going to end on a fun note, I promise. At least in my mind, it's fun. I wish. All right, have we put everything up on the, is everybody finished? Everything up? Do you guys only have one section on yours? Oh, okay. I just was distracted by the pretty. What? Yeah. See, I'm more of a front loader, but yeah. That's just how, again, that's why the most important thing with this is be true to yourself, and honest with yourself is the crucial point. Because like I said, sometimes I'm a lazy bum. And I know that about myself. So, yes. All right. Just wait a moment for Buck. Right. Slacker checked out. Jesse. We made a run for it. I don't know. All right, so while Jesse's there, if you guys want to come up and just come closer so you can actually see what's on the board, because this classroom is way too large for this class. So come hither so you can actually see what's here. Yeah, I'm a creeper. Huh? Yeah, you can still see from there, I think. Can you read the smaller writings too? Okay. We're small enough, everybody can get up and come towards the board so we can actually see. So everyone come on up, come up to the board. We're going to go ahead and start. All right. So starting over on the first side here, we have the conceptual area, which is what I kind of started off with. So right now we have the very first thing, establishing your mentoring support. Then starting with clearly defined term, review scientific literature, identify problems, reason for project, and formalize hypothesis. Does everybody agree with that? I think this is, the first way to start. That's good to go. The order's good. Makes sense to you? No dissonance there? See? Mm-hmm.
We put some of those under design, but I guess it could fall into.
That's the thing, is it could, and it's not a wrong or right, because again, like I was telling Thorne, I'm a front loader. I put a lot of things at the very beginning because I want to know where I'm headed before I've even taken a step. But that is my perspective. So you can tell I have a whole lot of things in this very beginning part, which I think a lot of you guys put in your design. But for me, I like to go ahead and start thinking about them before I even get into it. So, you know, this is mine, but it doesn't agree with yours. And that's an important thing to note because we're different. Now, it could be maybe as you progress, you know, some of this is going to shift around. But I think these are like nice, important little things that you can actually measure, and you can help you organize what you're going to. So then we're going to move to the design, and you guys had outline project, conceptualize project, review plan with mentor, finalize research plan, and then there's establish mentoring network, identify problem, review literature, conceptualize project, formalize hypothesis, outline, review plan with mentors, goals into objectives, terminology, research plan, appropriate funding sources. All right, so there's a lot of kind of back and forth on this. What are you guys' thoughts? What on that, you know, makes sense to you and what doesn't? You know, on the order here, what makes sense to you? Or what doesn't make sense, alternatively?
I feel like in the design, I think you're going to have the most dynamic, you're going to have the most collective attributes.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have the most work when you're trying to get your design put together, I think. And that's kind of how I view
Mm-hmm.
the thing.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Anybody else? Any other thoughts on design? You missed conceptual, Jesse. But
There's probably a lot of ways to do it.
there is. And like, again, like these little roadblocks I picked, again, were ones that I picked just, you know, because they made sense to me. So the most important thing is that you find those kind of steps for yourself and think about where they go. And again, you know, the same sort of thing can crop up several times. And again, taking note on my conceptual, like I said, I'm a front loader. So that's how I like to do things. I like to know all the possible things that could go wrong before I even start often. But that's how I work. So just make sure that, you know, you're aware of how you work, and that will change as you grow, as you learn, and you'll find out, you know, things that do work and don't work for you, which is kind of part of, you know, the next kind of part for me, like adaptation and revision. So, which those got out of order, but so for me, you know, I like to put my terminology here and running the test, collecting the data, and assessing the methods. Now this is an important one too, and to be honest with yourself here, you know, and again, like if it doesn't work, don't keep banging your head against the wall, you know, and again, check in with mentors, that's what they're there for. And motivation can be an issue at this point too for me, because, you know, if you are banging your head against the wall and, you know, your mentor is saying, well, I don't know why it's not working, you know, so sometimes, you know, motivation is part of your management too, because sometimes you need to take a break. And again, that's knowing yourself. That's the big part of this. And I know I keep saying it, but it's crucial. And honestly, knowing yourself. So in your empirical, you said run tests, collect data, and assess methods. So redirect as needed. So we were pretty on it with the empirical. And moving on to analytic. So analyze the data, share results with the mentor, and interpret data analysis. Okay. So that's pretty close to what I was at as well. So pretty similar, connect to bigger picture. I kind of put that there. I think you guys probably had that in dissemination. But again, I think this is my propensity to front load again, because I want to think about it before I even, you know, go to the next level. But this is me. So just be aware of these and always adapt as needed. So into dissemination, so identify appropriate publisher, publish share results, networking. And in yours, connect to bigger picture, share results with mentor, identify publisher, yep. Formally research paper, publish as a research paper. And we have some additions here too, networking for career advancement and utilize findings. So I think I already had those, but yeah, so there's a lot going on here. And I know this is, like I said, it was a boring topic to discuss, but hopefully this has kind of stirred the pot a little bit and you're kind of thinking about all these different, parts of your project and putting them into categories that work for you. And, the time management is one of the crucial things, and that's something that, you have to rely on your mentoring network to make stronger. You only have so much knowledge that you have in looking at literature. So, and that's something that as you go along, you'll learn more about too, which I think it might be some of the reason why, again, I am a front loader, because I like to throw all that stuff at the beginning so that, by the time I figured out what I'm doing, I've got a decent plan, because I've already beat myself crazy about it. But, so just something to keep in mind. So if you want to sit back down, we've got a fun little thing next, at least in my opinion. So we're going to watch a video, and it is a fun, silly video, but there's actually, some good stuff in there. But there also is a little bit of an adult language, so we're all mature here. We can handle, the B word, the HE double hockey sticks, and all that jazz. It's nothing bad. There's no F-bomb. But I just thought I'd give the warning, so if anybody is a, delicate soul, just be aware, be forewarned. I know. So while you're watching this, just keep in mind, what are the lapses in good project management, and how would you fix them or prevent them? So just kind of keep those things in mind, and we may have to watch it twice because I personally get distracted with it because I think it's entertaining again. So we'll watch it once and see how that goes, and if we need to watch it another time, we will. All right. Now we'll see. Oops, sorry. I'm going to try that again because I don't want to blow your eardrums out. Go figure. And all right. Let's see if I can. Yeah. Come back. No, it's not HDMI, it's VGA. Because the HDMI never works for me.
Audio?
Yeah, well, I paused it because I wanted this to get back on there. Okay. And encore une fois. There, that should be better. Stop for real play. All right. So I promised it would be entertaining, at least to me, and it is a fun, silly video, but it actually does have some real, issues in it. So besides just the fact that, she wasn't in unfortunate circumstances, it wasn't, so thinking about that, what'd you notice? Or do you really want to watch it again? Did you lose track? No. Okay, so what are the lapses in good project management, and how would you fix them or prevent them next time?
The lab notebook was messy.
Mm-hmm. So where would that kind of go into, like as far as the project management? Because I didn't explicitly write all of these, but. Mm-hmm. So keeping good, results.
It should be repeatable, your entire, like if someone walks into your lab, with your lab notebook and you point out your supplies, it should be repeatable. So labeling things in another language is not helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, but that's.
displacing them or letting them go bad.
Mm-hmm.
That, she said something pretty sour.
Yeah, well, what was the smell? So in other words, it wasn't labeled. So, I mean, and that's also just a general lab etiquette thing as well, that, you really should label your stuff. And, a lot of labs on campus, there's plenty of people who the English is not their first language. And so they may feel more comfortable writing it in another language, but, that's something that's obviously difficult to deal with. What else? I assure you, there's more than that.
What was going on with the Western plotting? Why didn't she have any strands?
I don't know.
Yeah, awful.
Yeah.
Should have been trying to get her mentor in to like go over what she was doing wrong.
Yeah, so there definitely was some lapses in mentorship. Now, what level it was, or, whatever, I mean, so that could have been, maybe at the beginning there wasn't a really great connection. Or, yeah. So how would you try to, address this or prevent it before it got to the epic bad project level? What would you maybe do to address this, inadequate mentorship?
Talk to PI before the meeting.
Yeah, before you embarrass yourself at a committee meeting? Yeah, that's usually a good thing. Hopefully you have a good PI that, will take your side, but sometimes that doesn't happen. So what would you do?
Well, communication is key.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to talk to your mentor.
What would you do though? Like seriously, what would you say?
Well, tell the truth. I mean, she picked up this project from someone that was on his way out because he had just defended,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a mess, and he wasn't around to verify any details or ask any questions.
Mm-hmm.
So you say your mentor, listen, this is a mess, and unless you know what's going on, I don't either. It's time to either move on or start from scratch. Which would be unfortunate.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, motivation is definitely part of project management and knowing when to take a break and step back. All right, what else did we notice?
Is it necessarily a realistic goal or objective to get published your first year doing research?
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty amazing promise to give somebody. But, if she didn't know any better, sometimes it falls back on mentoring as well. Like, I think that's one of the crucial, things in this is that she feels pretty alone. So the one nice thing about you guys is you're in the BLaST program. So if you're having a frustrated mentoring moment, you have resources, you have people you can go to. If you don't feel comfortable just going up to the PI and saying, hey, this is a mess, because sometimes that's really hard to do. So, that's the strength of having a network, is that, sometimes going straight to the top is the best way. And other times, maybe it's a little difficult. Maybe your PI just isn't even around, so you don't even know. Anything else?
You shouldn't be wearing a dress in the lab.
Biohazard bags.
I wouldn't put that in project management. I think that might go more in, maybe lab etiquette or something. But yeah, I mean, there's still some, basic project management issues in here that you guys haven't touched on yet? I could. There's,
The slicing, she was twisting so fast and the numbers were rising, she wasn't recording them? Or
Oh.
she was slicing an actual, like,
yeah,
understanding?
I'm not exactly sure. But I mean, I think that kind of goes back into motivation, which is also a big part of this one for different reasons. And it's a complicated thing. It really is. It's not cut and dry. It's not all, it was, that guy's fault that just, left. I mean, that's definitely a factor. But an important thing in project management, again, is being honest with yourself. So, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. I hate to be a pessimist there, but just being aware of those kind of things. And again, that's something you'll learn as you go on. And hindsight's always 20/20 and all that. But just being aware of things, I think, is a crucial element to this. Because it's really easy to just assign blame. And it is your project. You may have inherited some stuff and its foundation may be shaky, but it is your project. And when it comes down to it, you are accountable for it. So if it's not working, it's really, the sole point comes back to you. You have to find a way to make it work. It may be a bad project. It may be awful. It may not be salvageable. But as it's your project, it's up to you to find that out and use all those resources, use all these initial conceptual and design scaffolding that you built to be able to support what happens later. So I think that hits on most of them. But one thing I know that I mentioned that didn't come up was the kind of future prospects that she hints on. So she talks about motivation, but it's what's these future things she wants to go to, these goals. Nobody mentioned that.
I don't want to be poor.
Well, yeah, that's definitely one of them.
She doesn't want to take 5 years to get her degree in order to.
Mm-hmm.
She wants a job, but she wasn't ready to
Yeah.
find a job. So.
Yeah, and so again, it kind of comes back to her too. Like, I mean, I'm not going to say that she definitely had a rough start with this, but it's, it's really easy to just say it's, all on someone else, but it may not be. So kind of the stuff that I put on here was, motivation, mentoring. So, those I think are the major ones, and they go across the board in several different parts. And so, disorganized, that's, and no results. So, nothing's working. So there's, she's kind of like stuck, rambling around in this first few things. And it's not clear, where she is around things, but, maybe she just started. But, the major part is motivation and mentoring, in my opinion. And those are really crucial. Because if you don't care, why should anybody else either? So if you're not invested, then, it's really hard for your mentor to keep, drumming up support. So, it really does start with you. And that's why, again, I keep saying know yourself and be honest with yourself. You may have to take a break. You may have to restart. You may have to change things. And it's up to you to seek out the support and, the network and the foundation and do all of that to help make your project a success. I mean, as much as, it does take a group to be able to publish something great, generally speaking. Nobody stands alone. That's the joy of science as well as you work together. But it takes a lot. But so my general kind of thought is, just onward and upward, that, it does take a lot of time. It does take a lot of patience to do good science, and you've got to go through a lot of different steps, and, they vary from person to person, but I don't know, that's my general thought with it. And yeah, that's pretty much all I've got. I'm just wrapping it up. But if anyone has any questions or whatnot.